This is a small aircraft that gives you a lot of freedom. You can easily fly it anywhere, anytime with anyone on board. However, you need this license. It's not difficult to get it, it's almost like getting a driver's license, even though it's way more expensive. A person needs to pay $10 to $15K to start flying themselves. But now I know the place where and the way how to get it much cheaper. In this video I will tell you where to go, not only to obtain the cheapest pilot license in the world, but also where to experience their roughest adventures. So let's take a look at what you need in order for your pilot training to be successful. You need to pass the theory and be able to pass exams easily. You also need constant good weather in order to fly often. And you also need a good instructor. And if any of these points is far from being perfect, your training may get delayed. The longer your training process gets, the more expensive it becomes. Is there really a place where all these points are close to perfection? Yes, in South Africa. Do not be surprised. It was by pure accident that I got to know about aviation boom in South Africa. People come here from all over the world to get not only a private pilot license, but also a commercial one. A huge amount of aviation equipment, large, small, jets, and already flying exhibits. Here in every bar you will meet an aviator with whom you can spend endless hours discussing your flights. This is also a country which offers a wide variety of activities, and people tend to be chill, knowing how to relax and celebrate their lives. Now, let me explain everything one step at a time. I was introduced to South Africa by my friend Dima Demchuk. He moved to live in Africa for the sake of flying. 1 year later, he already settled down, got himself an airplane and other interesting equipment. By the way, the first thing that I did upon arrival in South Africa was helping Dima choose a Soviet jet aircraft L-29. Soviet technology is highly valued here. Now, let me tell you about typical features of this country. It has a huge territory and very low population density. Big cities and centers of attraction are scattered over long distances. So, there is a need for a fast and affordable transport without complex infrastructure. Some landowners have hectares of their own lands on which it's easy to place a small personal airfield, especially since there is no need here to register it. Such conditions have led to the fact that it's simply easier for people to have a small plane take off from their own land and fly wherever they need to. On my first flight in South Africa, I counted 7 airfields during a 15-minute flight, and this is not densely populated part of the country. Therefore, you will never have questions about where and why to fly. Even in a short visit, even in a safari, you will always be a place for comfortable landing. For example, this particular airfield is great to fly to for surfing. It is located almost on the shore near the surfing spot. Finally, there is a place on the planet where people do not complicate their lives, but simply keep it easy and fun. The next element in the formula for the ideal country to fly is the weather. Although modern aircrafts can fly in autopilot in bad weather, you must admit there is little enjoyment in it. There are tons of restrictions for such flights. If we talk about training flights, then ideal weather condition is an absolute must, and South Africa kindly provides those. In addition to the fact that the weather is sunny and warm here, it may seem that unbearable heat kills everything. However, as South Africa is quite far from the equator, and the average temperature here is 20 degrees Celsius all year round. This is ideal for both a person and an airplane. Here you can literally live in the sky, and only occasionally stumble upon rare storms and strange weather conditions. Aviation schools and aircraft owners do not spend a lot of money on storing equipment in hangars, because the sun here does not have the damaging effect. Pleasant weather, a variety of airfields create perfect conditions for enthusiasts who want not just to fly, but fly as far as possible, around the world for example, and not using some kind of purchased equipment, but on their own. Therefore, it's not surprising that once 2 friends from South Africa, who did not have any special education, decided to assemble their own plane just for fun and go around the world on it. The plane turned out to be a piece of cake, and they flew on it around the world several times. The rest of aviators were learning enough with requests to build the same plane. This is how Sling company was born. It is not the only aviation company from South Africa, but definitely the most hyped one. Now they are actively capturing the market with the four-seater aircraft. Simple, low budget, and beautiful. And they can be ordered as a kit and assembled in your own garage like a Lego constructor. I'm pretty serious about my Lego metaphor. Everything is very clear with a minimum amount of drawings and diagrams, so that everything you need to assemble is in one place. Everything is labeled and numbered. All you need to do is to insert everything into place and not spend tons of time looking for parts and sorting them out. Remember your IKEA wardrobe? Now imagine that you can assemble and fly on it, but the production itself is not much of production site style. Everything is arranged to all standards. A lot of complex technological processes are carried out very quickly and accurately. The stereotype about Africa gets crashed, especially when you see workers who perform complex operations. They clearly underwent training. I saw the parking lot in front of the factory with very good cars parked there. So the working conditions are very favorable, including those for painting because it's always warm. In general, it's quite a usual situation when freshly painted plane is pulled outside to dry. In general, it's quite impressive how open everyone is. Those guys are happy to demonstrate everything, even the newest developments and the test benches. This is specific openness typical for aviators all over the world. Well, I fell in love with the final assembly shop, where the engine is inserted into the airframe. Final touches are made and you get to witness the birth of a new aircraft. Then you take 5 steps towards the runway where the newly born aircraft makes its first flight. Simply unbelievable that such a huge production line lives right on our field where other aviators fly and live. Isn't this a dream that came true? Those guys managed to make 300 aircrafts a year, which is a lot for this industry. And they already say that they no longer cope with the amount of orders. By the way, I witnessed how they loaded containers with their kits to the ship to the American market. Well, the main advantage for South Africa pilots is that inside the country the aircrafts are standard and can be used by aviation schools for training. Since the production line is right around the corner, also means fast and cheap servicing of the aircraft. Just so that you know, Sling aircraft is not only one production line of this type in Africa. There are a lot of planes here, but there are even more pilots. At the beginning of this video, I was not joking when I said that you can meet a pilot in the most unexpected place. For example, once we were having a walk along the beach at sunset and hanging out with the guys who were dancing to live music. And guess what?
Guys, it's South African vibes. This guy is a pilot.
I'm a pilot, yeah.
Having a pilot license here is quite usual and does not surprise anyone. Everyone is attracted by the sky. So the most obvious and simple way to get to fly a lot and for free is to become an instructor. All the stories of the instructors that I met here are all about combining professions. For example, my friend Dima had a helicopter instructor who turned out to be an engineer working at Volkswagen plant. Every morning before going to work, he flies with his students. Of course, people like him don't do this for money, because the instructor's hourly rate is extremely low. I did some calculations and realized that instructor's rate here is 3 times cheaper than in our neck of woods. The combination of these factors has attracted people from all over the world to South Africa. They came here to learn to fly. This fertile soil gave birth to the huge number of aviation schools. Really, there are so many of them that the state had limit to the minimum threshold of the price to education, so that schools are not allowed to make it lower to compete with each other at the expense of safety. In several months, I visited different parts of South Africa and attended many aviation schools, but I was most impressed by the school in the city of Port Elizabeth. It is located in the east coast of Africa. The Indian Ocean is warm all year round. Port Elizabeth is a million-plus city with all the benefits, but at the same time I never got in the traffic jams. The place is really safe, you can easily go out to do your groceries at 8 p.m. and everyone smiles at you. There is a decent international airport with heavy traffic of the large aircrafts, and an aviation school is also located there. On top of that, it turned out that is the cheapest flying school that I found, Madiba Bay School of Flight. Pilots graduate from the school each year, and most of them are foreigners from all over the world who train to become private pilots, and some of them for commercial ones. The school has a fleet of different types of aircraft, but the most usual one, of course, is a Sling. It is most often chosen for training purposes because it is the cheapest. I did one flight with a school instructor, and the fact that you share a runway with a huge Boeing invigorates you on the one hand and keep you extremely focused on the other. I think this is an ideal combination for the quick assimilation of radio traffic and other things that cannot be learned when training on small-town airfields. This school has a training class where I was allowed to fly both in normal mode and in virtual reality glasses. The latter was my first experience, and I was shocked at how plausible it looked. I'd like to install such equipment at home, so please write me in the comments below which one to choose for this purpose. The school has its own crazy cool ground training class and its own training materials. Everything is explained using the examples of the airfield and nearby routes, so everything is very clear for the first flight. I spent several days watching the work in progress at school, and smile never left my face. Everything was done at the highest level, but at the same time in the most friendly atmosphere. The students communicated, went through briefings, and helped each other in analyzing the materials. The planes never remained on the ground for a long time. Trainees kept switching. The training was always in full swing. I want to make a special mention of a cafe of the airport run by Daphne. She herself is a student of the school who decided to open a cafe nearby in order to somehow cheer up the atmosphere at the airport. As a result, it ended up being a home for adolescent themed events and a point of attraction for all flying enthusiasts. Such amateur activities are allowed, so pilots do something for pilots. By the way, the school also has its own apartments for living nearby. So by making one payment you can close all you need. And as for money, at the time of shooting this video, the cheapest option of getting the pilot's license in the school was $6,000. Compare this amount with the price in local flying schools. It turned out that training in South Africa is 2 times cheaper than in our latitude. In South Africa, you can not only learn to fly but also just enjoy aviation activities. In 1 month, I visited 4 air shows and they were chosen randomly. It just turned out that some kind of air shows were taking place in the location where I arrived. This was not a small town get-together of aviators, but decently organized events. There was a flight program as well as on-the-ground show and all other perks. It would seem that everyone should have become bored with the whole thing aviation for a long time, as it's so highly common here. But surprisingly, I stumbled into crowds of people at every event. Heavy chatting with the audience of the show, it turned out that these are not random passers-by, but people who do have basic knowledge about flying activities. By the way, at one of the shows there was a jet glider, a classmate of the Red Demon, and a review of which you can find on my channel. Gliders are also very popular in South Africa, as there are a couple of manufacturers and very interesting conditions of glider flights. Gliders are my main love in aviation, but unfortunately during this trip I did not focus on them. What do you think? Should I go back to make a video only dedicated to the gliders event in South Africa? Aside from its aviation sphere, this country is still an amazing place. An incredibly comfortable climate, the absence of annoying insects, developed infrastructure. I crossed the country driving a rental car with absolutely no problem and never ended up in any neglected places. You don't spend your cash at jet rate, everything is quite affordable compared to our neck of woods. Living in the US now, I usually wipe the tears of nostalgia, remembering how things used to cost peanuts in South Africa. There are a lot of other activities besides aviation. Everyone goes surfing and yachting, rides all types of transport. This area are full of clubs, events and competitions. For example, an hour of the surf lesson with the field crew and personal instructor cost me $20. In general, people here do not need to be on a budget for anything and yet do not spend huge amounts on anything. You can definitely expect that on your trip to South Africa you will combine both aviation and good rest. I especially want to emphasize the hassless way of life. Even the non-locals who have been living here for more than a year are already different. They are never in a hurry, they do everything calmly and never rush. Apparently, life in South Africa has the best therapeutic effect. In conclusion, I would like to state that South Africa is the ideal destination to get away from our continent. Despite everything, make your dreams come true, fly airplanes, make new friends, laugh and try to learn from the locals how to celebrate your life every day. I will be very glad if you visit these lands and understand my positive impressions. And I am off to search for new dream locations for experienced and aspiring aviators. See you later, aviators!